Hi, Robin.
Hello, Peter Katz.
How are you doing?
Peter, I'm very well. I'm very well. I'm excited to be here to record this with you today.
As am I. I mean, people listening might just be, they might just be getting sick of me saying how much I love connecting with you. So apologies, everybody. I just can't help myself.
Oh,
Um, but I'd love to know, Robin. I see that you're in a different location. So where are we catching you in time today?
today I'm joining you from the beautiful Kelowna, British Columbia. It's nice and early here, and there's actually just a wee bit of a sunrise peeking over these mountains. And Peter, where are you today?
Well, first of all, I just want to say how much I love Kelowna. I spent a summer out in the Okanagan doing a play actually with the Caravan Farm Theatre, and we lived like bohemians in the woods and put on a production of Cyrano. It was amazing. So I have such fond memories of being out there and swimming in all the different water bodies of water there, and we would go to a different place in the Okanagan every day and swim and bask in the sun and then do a play at night and then stay up all night and play music together. I mean, what a life. I think I made $300 or something the whole summer, but my gosh, did I ever have fun. So thank you for bringing me that beautiful memory of my summer in the Okanagan.
Peter, I love that. I love that share.
I am in a state known as in between two Edmontons. So I'm actually back at my home in Toronto, but I flew back and forth to Edmonton yesterday for a keynote, and I'm flying back to Edmonton in 12 hours or whatever it is for the Juno Awards, which I think is going to
Yay!
be pretty fun. My partner is nominated for the 8th time, so I'm just going there to be the trophy partner, basically, just some arm candy over here. So it's going to be. I'm super proud of her, and it's going to be an awesome time, I'm sure.
Oh, I'm so excited for Tess to be able to celebrate. What an accomplishment. And I just marvel at the impact that she and her work and her craft have touching the hearts of so many children and families and supporters all over the world. And we are cheering her on for her adventure at the Junos. And I'm glad you'll be there with her.
Yeah, thank you, Robin. I'm really looking forward to it, and it's an interesting thing. I've been thinking about a little bit because I'm sort of approaching it. I'm there as support, right? I'm there, and wherever she wants to go or whatever party there is to attend or industry person to talk to, I'm there to be the wingman, and I also I'm mindful of like having some feelings around it in the sense that, like, most of my career, I was single-mindedly in music and just pursuing being the artist, and my life has shifted a lot, and I'm still making new music and putting albums out into the world, and I've committed myself to being an artist for life, and what it looks like is different than it used to, and what success looks like is also, I'm still kind of figuring that out, right? It's weird to have this singular vision of what success looks like, which for me is sold out Massey Hall, sold out Carnegie Hall, sold out Sydney Opera House. Like that's all that I wanted, and I've allowed myself to evolve what that looks like, and it's painful sometimes too to grow and evolve. And I'll just ramble on for one more second here. I remember my mindfulness coach, who I talk about basically every episode, saying to me, she said, like, make no mistake, as you do this work, as you come into self-actualization or enlightenment or whatever that might be, there's a pain and grief to it, because you're sort of killing off other parts of yourself, or you're at least letting them die or letting them go. And so I'm as I go into this weekend with all of the industry people that I have known for years and years and years, and maybe feeling a little bit like an outsider, now for the first time, I'm mindful of like, okay, how do I want to show up? What might come up?
Yeah.
And how do I kind of prep myself for that situation so that I can stay really present for Tess and enjoy the experience, right?
Yeah.
It's like, what a cool thing to get to go to the Juno Awards and walk the red carpet and do all of these things. So yeah, just that idea of kind of preparing myself. And so curious if you have any insights around preparing oneself for something that might be an emotional situation.
Yeah. Well, Peter, first, I just want to hold space to thank you for sharing that with us all. And I think so often a lot of these kind of, again, if we want to name it like a struggle or these like reinventions, often we do this work in our mind. And I think that creates these layers of complexity. And when we're able to actually make it explicit, when we make it visible, even through our words, it just adds a dimension of clarity to something that if we kept it locked up, becomes much more heavier to carry on your own. So I just want to thank you for letting us see some of that process, letting us see some of these ideas that you're holding. In terms of answering your question, one of the strategies I know works really well for myself, and I do share this with others I get to work with, is this idea of coping ahead of time. So usually in our culture, we think of like we cope after the fact. And coping, that word, I think has a wee bit of a negative connotation. Like coping seems like, oh, it's like a bad thing. Where to me, coping is like identifying what the need is and then addressing the need so that way we can get back to in a place of being like okay or balanced or kind of in our stride. So one of the strategies that I find using coping ahead of time actually makes a big difference for me anyway. So if I'm going into a situation that I know might be triggering, heavy, complex, or multifaceted in terms of all of these different feelings, like this feeling factory, what I want to be thinking about is like, what do I have to do ahead of time to walk into that situation as like my most grounded and like safe feeling self? Like what does that look like? So something that I know for me, Peter, is like, I need a wee bit of sleep. I need to make sure I got a lot of movement in my body that day ahead of time, just so that way I find that something that actually settles my physical body. And then I start thinking about my emotional self. So for me, I love to like just, again, really start thinking about, okay, where do my emotions need to land? Do they need courage? Right? So am I going to listen to an amazing Hans Zimmer soundtrack right before? Because if you listen to Hans Zimmer Gladiator going into any situation, you're literally going to be hardwired for success. Or do I need to listen to something tender to keep my heart open? So just checking in with my physical self and my emotional self and doing my best to put myself in a situation that I can walk in bravely and confidently, feeling like, come what may, I'll be okay. And I'm choosing to make good choices.
I love that.
Thank you.
I love it. Well, first of all, fun side note. A friend of mine in LA who I've done a bunch of writing with, his wife is Hans Zimmer's like right-hand woman, produces like his music. I was like, what? So anyways, I just remember sitting on his couch being like blown away by that thought. And I really appreciate what you're saying. And what I appreciate too is that you're just reminding me of, you know how we all have these tools, we have these things that we learn and then we sort of do them for a little bit and then we kind of forget about them. And even though they were totally serving us when we were doing them, we stopped doing them. And you're reminding me of this little technique that I learned doing heart math work. And for those people that aren't familiar with heart math, they sort of really show the science behind us getting into heart coherence. And I mean, you could go down an entire rabbit hole just around the power of doing some of their techniques and heart locks and mindfulness and all these things that we do that we might interpret as a little bit woo-woo or, oh, yeah, sure, okay, I'm going to breathe into my heart a little bit. It actually changes you physiologically. Not only does it change you physiologically, it actually changes the people around you, and they attach sensors to people and they show the effect of this is mind blowing. But one of the techniques that they talked about is priming, and we did a visualization around priming before being with a loved one. And so Tess and I, during the pandemic, we would always just meet up on these walks. And I remember, I completely forgot about this. I would do this like heart priming on my way to see her, where I would just sort of prepare my heart and really kind of open myself up and feel the excitement at getting to see her and getting to be with her, and just kind of like nurturing that love feeling in advance of arriving to her. And I remember like giving her this kiss, and she'd be like, "Oh my gosh, like what's happening here?" You know? But it was like I had really set myself up for that situation. So I really thank you for reminding me of that idea of priming. And as I go into this weekend, and maybe before walking into some of these rooms again with people that I know well but haven't seen in a long time, how do I prime myself to be excited to see them, and maybe I don't need anything from them anymore, right? Yeah. It's like we can just be friends or be humans, or I can just appreciate the work that they do without being like, oh, do you like me? Can you help me in my music career? Yeah. And it's funny, Robyne, I'm really mindful of how vulnerable it is for me to say this all out loud, because I'm still so resistant to the idea that I might be anything other than 100% artist, like that I might be these other things. And you and I were talking a little bit about that tension sometimes as we evolve and grow in our lives. And I was talking about, so I'm often operating now in these spaces as a speaker and a facilitator and retreat designer and all these different things. And I'm just sort of like, first of all, how did I get here? And second of all, do I belong here? So there's the imposter syndrome, and then of course there's moments. The reason I'm there is because I've had these incredible moments where it's like, oh yes, you absolutely belong here, and in fact the way that you're coming at this is different than we've ever had anybody come at it in this world. And so there's this beauty to it as well, and this excitement and this newness, and there's itchiness sometimes, or there's a feeling of like, am I selling out? Am I letting go of something? Like there's this tension, and so I'm curious for you, like your background was sort of in academia and as a teacher and working with students and doing research, and then you all of a sudden had this life where you're now on stage and getting paid to share these ideas in a different way, and I'm not saying that the stakes aren't high in academia, but you get into these like large corporations and you're wining and dining with CEOs and you're doing all these things, and I wonder if you feel any of that any of that tension as well, and maybe we can kind of dive on that topic a little bit together.
Yeah, well, Peter, I would love to take a deep dive on this topic. And the one, I just want to pull one last little thread about what you said about the heart priming, and then I would love to jump into the other.
Okay, sounds good.
I love that share about priming your heart to see Tess before you saw her, and that it like radiated through you and she felt it. And for I feel like, again, and this all kind of comes together in the sense that whenever I'm on the road and then like I come back to my family, I also have a similar practice where I make sure to be like fully present for the reconnection that's about to happen because we've been apart. And one of the most sage parenting pieces of advice I ever heard, and I believe it was from Toni Morrison. She said, the way to actually like reconnect with a child, like the way to actually do the heart work, is you want to be in a position that when you see your child, or any child for that matter, that when you see each other again for the first time, your eyes light up. That when you see them, your eyes light up. And I remember hearing that so many years ago. And anytime I would pick up the children from daycare or school or practice, I always would like to be in this moment, Peter, where I was like, I wanted the eye contact because I wanted them to know that this is the best part of everything, is when I get to see you again. And I could share with you, like, again, the children are 18, 16, and 14. And I still, every time I see them, like, before I used to like intentionally set like eye contact to like kind of set our hearts ablaze. But now it's literally just, I don't think I could not do it when I see them, because it's just how I show back up for my family. And I find that it's just, again, that little kind of mental reminder of just how deeply we need to be seen and matter to people who matter the most to us. So to anyone listening, if even just to I invite you to think about that practice of like, just have your face light up when your loved ones see you. And I think that would just, I think it would heal a lot of hearts, Peter, if that's how we showed up for one another. So that's that one piece that I just wanted to tie a bow on that thread and offer that to this morning.
Can I add
Yes.
a bonus bow to that, Robin?
Absolutely.
Because that moved me. That's a beautiful share. I will carry that forward. So thank you for that. And I think I mentioned in one or two episodes ago, I can't remember, but I was talking about, again, mindfulness practice, and how she had me doing things like just noticing pleasure, whether
Yes.
that's like eating something, or washing hands, or folding laundry, or just like noticing, finding pleasure in the basic things of life, and also the best of life, right? And she added another practice in our last class that I think connects with what you just shared, which is every time you're saying goodbye to somebody, there's just a little, not in a sort of tragic way, but just a little bit of, if this is the last time that I'm saying goodbye to them, like, how do I want to hold them in my heart, and how do I want to say goodbye? So just like every single time that you say goodbye, just hold that little thought of, this might be the last time, and how do I want to hold that space and love for them? How do I want them to know how I feel? And it's like, that's huge, and I feel like what an amazing habit to develop for the people that we love and care for the most, and maybe even beyond them,
Yes.
if we could actually show up for all humans with that dignity and awe of like, hey, human,
Yeah.
who just bagged my groceries, like,
Yeah.
I see you, and if I never see you again, then thank you. So there you go. It's big when you really think about it, isn't it? Because it's true, right? Like, there's an element to it that's not fiction, right? And when you see, I'm getting emotional too. When you see how quickly things can change, it's like, it's not just a practice, it's actually what life is.
Yeah. To continue in this conversation, I'm going to build up my big emotional wall, just for the moment, my friend. And thank you for bringing that. I'm going to just, I literally in my mind just thought, what muscle group am I working today in the gym? Because I need to I got to build bigger muscles to put in all these feelings, because that's where we put them. I want to honor that. And to answer your question about the reinvention piece, I love the share you made earlier from your insights an experience about there's a grieving that happens where we let go of dreams or goals. And then we even question, am I a sellout? Am I giving up? Like, when do you persist versus when do you recognize that there's a different future available to you? Like, how do we discern? How do we discern where we're meant to be and how to walk in these multiple paths? And I appreciate that reflection you gave about me leaving the security of the academy to start, this other adventure. And one of the things I think often happens is that we just get really attached to these kind of future ideas of ourselves or what success might look like. And we need to really attach ourselves to those future ideas, because that's how we are able to make decisions and choices, how we stay motivated, how we stay focused. And I think when we get to a crossroads where we have to actually kind of look back and look forward at the same time to figure out what's the next right move, I really think we do need to actually have some type of moment to grieve. And actually to not just do that intellectually, but actually to do it physically as well, where we actually can say, okay, now my path in front of me has changed, and I want to give thanks for all of the experiences and everything that worked together to get me here. And then actually have some type of ceremony, some type of moment to actually say, and this is where I'm going to put my next step, and we start into a new adventure. And often I think there's a lot of pressure that we're supposed to do that quickly or really in a streamlined way. The reality is it's messy because it's a grief, and grief is a beast, and it's messy and it's unpredictable, and we need to show up in that in whatever way works for us in that moment. And I think that's part of that idea I wanted to share with you.
Yeah, I appreciate the non-timeline that you're attaching to that, and that, I mean, I'm sure we've talked about grief before, but the idea that we get frustrated with ourselves when we're, we think we've grieved something, and then a month later we're like, I'm feeling it again, I'm back here again. But I know we've talked about the idea that the metric around our grief is not that we don't feel the grief again. It's how long has it been since I was last grieving this, or how quickly was I able to sort of soothe myself or work through it, or have the cry and come out on the other side, or how long did it take me to get out of bed this time, or whatever that might be. And those are the wins, or the signs that that we've done the work of feeling to healing. And so I think what I appreciate about what you're saying too is that there is no timeline, and that there's an importance in acknowledging that these things impact us, and that it is impactful for me to think okay, the sort of rock star ideal that I had, I'm not doing the activities to create that in I was so intentionally and so deliberately. So, and that's painful for me. In fact, it's kind of crazy to me that I'm even saying this out loud on this episode, because I've never said that other than to very, 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 very close, connections of mine. I don't think I've ever sort of admitted that I'm doing different things, and I'm really present to how scary it is for me to say that out loud, and just I have a lot of feelings around that. And I'm also, as I said earlier, and part of the reason why I think I am doing some of these different activities and different things with my life is I realize that there's other things that I can do that I find incredibly satisfying.
Yes.
And as is so often the case, you could insert any fill in the blank with any job or whatever that might be. Like there's the thing that we think something is, and then there's the reality of what it is, and there's elements to it where we're like, oh, that's not that's not quite how I thought it was going to look like. And because I was pursuing the dream, I had the moment of being alongside people that had achieved the thing that I thought I wanted. And then I had this sort of sobering moments of realizing, oh, that's what that looks like, or that's what their happiness or lack of happiness level is. Like I just thought they would have had it all figured out, and that they would just be walking around on a cloud. And then it invites the realization of oh, there's a deeper quest here, than I realized, and so I guess having the courage to follow the things that are emergent, that are sort of saying, hey, come over here. Like we'd love to have you over here if you'll have us.
Mm-hmm. Peter, that's powerful. I feel so just honored to be part of this conversation with you. I'm very confident it will land in a lot of people's hearts, because what you're describing in terms of this, just being, again, open to this reinvention, this kind of idea of where do we get to go from here? Where do you get to go from here in your art and your craft? I think this is something that, again, a lot of people can really relate to. I also have this feeling, and this really speaks to kind of how I've managed kind of to think about some of these transitions that I've navigated recently, is there's a component of trust and faith and surrendering that maybe your skills, talents, and gifts are needed somewhere else, and being open to this idea that if I have that servant heart and I want to use my gifts for the greatest good, then I'm very confident you'll be in that place where that work can get done with people who might not be buying a ticket to Massey Hall and might not be in the Sydney Opera House. They might be at a corporate retreat. They could be on a PD day. They could be in a ballroom at a hotel in Edmonton, and they need to hear your message. They need to hear your music. They need to be part of what it's like to have that Peter Katz moment, which I love that is described as the thunderbolt to the soul, because it is. And perhaps this is that path that we're going to reach people, and you will be reaching people that might not have otherwise had a chance to have your paths cross. And if I can share just one little moment, I like to collect moments. We've talked about this before. I love little moments, and those, I don't know if anyone remembers those. When I was little, I used to be gifted precious moments. There are these little tiny, like little, oh gosh, I don't know what you call them, like figurines, I guess. Yeah. And I love that idea of a precious moment. And after I lost my mom, I knew I would never get a precious moment again, because she was the one who gifted me those little figurines. So I created this practice, Peter, where I would collect a moment. And in my mind, I would hold that. My friend Stephanie would call it a core memory, but I would hold it as, this is going to be a new precious moment. And I can share with you, just last Saturday, and when we jumped on our podcast to record on Monday, I had shared with you that I had this really special Saturday. And a moment within my precious Saturday was, Jeff and I were in Costco, and it was really like negative, frantic energy in Costco, and everyone was in a mood, it felt like. And Jeff and I were just in our little like happy place, having the best time ever, just the two of us doing our thing. And there was these really very tight lines of people trying to check out. And I saw this woman with her teenage daughter and a younger daughter, and they were just trying to cut through the line, Peter, to get to where you can get the food, like the ice cream cones and hot dogs or whatever it is. And no one would let her through. And I saw this. So I literally like moved a few carts and I called the woman over and said, hey, there's a lane for you here. You cut right through. And she said, thank you. And she scooted through. And I didn't think anything of it at all. Jeff and I left Costco, and the woman was standing there again with her 2 daughters. And she stopped me, Peter, and she said, is your name Robyne? And I said, well, yes. And she said, I read your book. And I thought, that's effing amazing. I was just like, wow. And she said, I need you to know I read your chapter on fear and realized that I was staying in a job and a post, like a career, that I was only staying in it because I was scared. And she said, I've left teaching, I've re-enrolled in school, and now I'm studying to be a vet tech, and I've never been this happy. And she looked at her daughters who were standing there, and the daughters are like, yeah, our lives got better. And I had this moment where I was I didn't have a lot of good words at the moment, Peter, but I really just, it was more of a prayer while I was stumbling to find language to share with her how much I appreciated what she was saying. And all I could get out after I said my thank yous was to turn to her teenage daughter and said, like, you have a very amazing mom. And the girl said, yeah, I know, which I loved. And I didn't say anything else. And Jeff and I pushed our cart back to our car in like silence. And I get in the car and I just like burst into tears. And they weren't sad tears. They were just this like, I never in my wildest dreams, Peter, could have even imagined that me putting some of those words on paper and sharing it in the world could actually like help someone. And I remember talking to a member of the Academy when I said that I was going to write a non-academic book and I was going to talk openly about depression and being a high school dropout and self-harm and suicide. Like I was going in there and I was going to talk about my accident. And they said to me, you are going to be committing academic suicide if you ever tell anybody about your learning disabilities and being a dropout. Like you're going to never have credibility in the Academy if you do it. And I had this moment sitting in the car, Peter, where I was really glad that I burnt that bridge with parts of the Academy. And to tie a bow on this share, I'm mindful of time, so I'll be as brief as I can. I was recently gifted a T-shirt by this amazing woman I met in Texas, and it said, "May the bridges you burn light your path." And I had this moment in the car because I literally just got the T-shirt. I have burnt that one bridge in that one vein of the Academy that I no longer work in. And I realized me burning that bridge became a path, and it lit the path for someone else. Booyah.
Wow.
Yes! Like, why not us? Like, why not us?
I was going to say mic drop, but it's like flamethrower drop or something there. I literally just want to hit record and do another episode on continue this thread because you've just that's so beautiful, Robyne. I'm sure anybody with a beating heart out there listening to that feels inspired by that story, and I feel inspired by that story, and it's just such a powerful reminder that part of. And we talked last episode about making decisions, right?
Yeah.
And part of making decisions is what we say no to. Mm-hmm. It's just as important as what we say yes to. And sometimes there's pain and there's a lot of things we need to work through in order to say those no's. And what a beautiful testament to your courage of being willing to do something that somebody so forcefully said to you was the wrong thing to do, and yet you did it anyway. So, kudos.
Thank you, my friend.
I need to run out the door to the person that said yes to being my hairdresser, because I'm like supposed to be there in 1 minute.
Oh, it's here.
But that was worth it over and over. We'll save questions for next time, Robyne. This has been beautiful. Thank you for how you showed up for all of us today, and can't wait to do this again soon.
Thank you, Peter. Be well. Bye for now.